gentlemen, today at the Coffee Pass Championships, another battle of the big bird grinders. On the left corner, Niche Zero, the well-known grinder, king of the single dose grinders. On the right corner, the challenger, DF83, who people are calling the Niche Killer. Who will win this battle? Watch the video to find out. Hi, I'm Peter from Coffee Parts, and today we're looking at the battle of the big blade single dose coffee grinders at a similar price point. Now we've got the Niche, which has a cult following, needs no introduction, super well known, plenty of videos out there, and it's running a 63mm conical blade sourced from the Mazziconi. And you have the new DF83, which is the evolution of the DF64. In the case of the 83, it's using 83mm flat blades made by Italmill. Now, why single dose grinders? Well, there's no need to purge. You get out what you put in, and they're easy to dial in. Now, before we dive into the specs of these grinders, let's make a coffee and see how they perform, and then we can look at what makes these grinders similar and what makes them different. But first things first, let's make coffee. So firstly, we're gonna run 20 grams of coffee out of the Niche. The Niche is a well-known grinder, almost needs no introduction, plenty of videos out there, massive cult following, and was really the first single dose coffee grinder out on the market. So dropping in 20 grams. Although it is a little slow, it's quite therapeutic to watch the beans go in through the clear lid, and the sound is got a niche sound. It's hard to explain, but it just has a unique sound to it. Now I've got 20 grams. We're gonna be using the Stone espresso machine. We've used it in quite a few videos lately. It's a new machine out of Milan, Italy, vibrating pump, heat exchange. So just transferring the coffee over here. Now this is a 63mm conical blade grinder. There's a big debate between conical and flat. Personal preference, but we'll go into that in a second. Giving that a tap. Locking it in. Bringing out these cups. Cutting that shot. Now, being a conical blade grinder and a Niche, do expect a very full-bodied espresso. It's a very familiar espresso for a conical blade. So it's that full body, very solid, a lot of crema. Very pleasurable coffee. Now, we're gonna do the same thing out of the new DF83. You got a flat blade grinder. Interesting to see the speed. It's gonna be a lot faster grinder, but we will have to bellow at the end. So just turning on the grinder, opening that bellows. And it's done. You can see through the clear dosing cup. It's really nice to be able to not only see it, but as we transfer into the portafilter, to be able to see it transfer into the portafilter. You do, however, have to bellow through any extra, which you didn't have to do in the Niche. Now, very even, very consistent grind. Being able to transfer, you can see it's all transferred in there neatly. Now, I feel like the main difference here will be the fact that it's a flat blade versus a conical. And obviously it was a lot faster grinder, slightly different sound. Lining that up. It's looking really good. A lot of crema. Now being a flat blade grinder, you expect a lot more clarity. And in this case, you're getting a lot of chocolate and caramel undertones. Really is nice, very different body versus clarity. Both really nice, just different. I think it really does come down to personal preference, and let's put that aside and really dive in to see the specs of these, what makes them similar and different. So what makes these machines similar yet different? Firstly, looking at the blades. The Niche uses a 63mm conical blade sourced from the Mazziconi, while the DF83 uses 83mm flat steel blades made by Italmill, but you can replace them out with the Mazza ZM blades or with the SSP high uniformity blades. They are having a multi-purpose SSP blade come out, and then that will really be used if you want to go from filter to espresso, just have that wider range. So from a blade size, it really comes down to if you like conical or flat. More body, more clarity. Now they're both big blades, although technically 20mm wider on the DF83, the conicals are taller, so you got that bigger surface area in that respect. Moving on to how these grinders dial in, and they're both super easy. On the Niche, you lift it up and just turn it, and you can easily go from espresso to filter and back. And you know where you're at. You got a little point here, you can see clearly on the markings. And because there's no coffee in there, it's a single dose grinder, you can easily move it to a coarser and then back to finer easily. With grinders that have coffee, like grind-on-demand grinders, you need to be grinding out small amounts of coffee as you go finer to be able to do that. The DF83 is exactly the same. You can easily move it across and know exactly where you're at. In older models, they didn't have the dial indicator. Now that they do, you clearly see where you're at, and it's super easy to move across between different brew methods. They've also moved from the earlier DF64 models where you had 3 springs inside to a wave O-ring, which means it's so easy to move. You can pull it apart, put it back together without any movement. So from a dialing in perspective, they're now really equivalent. Easy to dial in, easy to see, easy move from espresso to filter. Now, when you are loading the coffee, it is slightly different. With a Niche, you don't have a bellows, so it gets out all the coffee. It's a zero retention grinder without having to bellow or push through anything. And you got a clear lid where you can clearly see the beans go through, in some ways quite therapeutic. On the DF83, you've got the bellows system, and from the previous models, they really have upped the bellows. It fits a lot better, it is a lot neater, and it's starting to feel quite premium. So now you've got the bellows to push out any coffee. As you're grinding, you can bellow through and make sure there's nothing in there. Zero retention once again. Technically, when you first get the grinder, there is a little bit of seasoning, so zero exchange, if you want to think of it that way as you move forward. So different approaches, very similar. When it comes to speed, the DF83 is a lot faster grinder. In the past, they were quite a pitchy grinder in the DF64s, but now the sounds become quite nice. And we're gonna run out 20 grams on each grinder now, almost to see a competition of speed, although we do know the DF83 is faster, but just to get an indication. What I'm gonna do is load 20 grams of coffee into each one and 20 grams into here. A quick way of opening it is just to squeeze that bellows really lightly. Now we're gonna start them at the same time and see how they end. 1, 2, 3. That one's done. Although the Niche is a little bit slower, it is quite therapeutic, and the slower doesn't mean it's a bad thing. They run at a lower RPM being a conical blade, but it's kind of cool. So from a speed, the DF83 is a lot faster, a little slower. The sound, they're kind of equivalent these days. We can actually just start them up without any coffee in there, just to listen. So it is a bit lower, a little nicer sound on the Niche. Once you've got coffee running through it, quite similar. Now it leads me on to the build quality. The original DF64 and the current niche were nice, but build quality wasn't their strength. In saying that, on the DF83, they're really starting to up the game. The machines are starting to become a lot more refined, a lot more finished. It's now a painted metal body versus previously a vinyl aluminium body. The collar's a lot smoother, a lot nicer. The typography on the top is getting quite neat. They've moved the switch from the front to the side, really are getting a really nice build and a nice design. You got a small cut across here that lets the air flow. It looks really neat on the bench. I'm not a big fan of the power cable coming out the side here. The power cable coming out the back on the niche, not also a big fan. Prefer when they come out the bottom and you can really control where you want that power cable, but not a real red flag. But the build quality has really picked up on the DF83. The niche is familiar, it's nice, but it does have that feel of almost like a household appliance, think of a blender or something along those lines. Now, talking about switches, they're both on the side now. Previous DF64 had it on the front, both on the side now, and I think on the side is quite easy to use. Obviously, I'm in a weird position here, but generally when you're using them from the front of the machine, it's just on your right hand, either tap or flick, and it's really easy. And when it comes to accessories, with the niche, it's pretty much what you get. Just a niche and a dosing cup. The dosing cup does fit on a 58mm portafilter. With the DF83, you're getting a lot more accessories. Obviously, you've got the bellows system, but it also comes with a hopper if you did want to use this as a grind on demand instead of a single dose grinder. The dial indicator is now standard. In Australia, it was already standard on the DF64, but wasn't globally. Now this is standard globally. You got your dosing cup, and the cup does fit into a 58mm portafilter like we used before. It does come with a riser, and the riser sits perfectly on the cup and on the other side perfectly on a 58mm portafilter. Comes with a little brush and a little water container or a spritz system. So overall, it's really hard to say which one is better. They're just different. Now that they're both at similar price points, you got conical versus flat. You got a flat blade that's easier to interchange. You can play around with it a little bit more. You got the bellows system, no bellows, a bit slower, but a little bit quieter. That really does come down to personal preference. There are other single dose grinders on the market you can look at, but for this price point, they are cool. The difference does become that niche has gone a direct-to-consumer model, so depending where you are in the world, it might take a while to get the machine, semi-hard to get, and warranty becomes a little bit harder. The DF range has retailers around the world, more accessible, easy to buy. If there's any issues, easy to get it looked after. Personally, I'll be happy with either machine. The niche I've had for a long time, since Indiegogo days. The DF83, this is the 31st machine produced, first in Australia. I've only just recently got it, so really haven't had too long with it, haven't played out, haven't changed the blades on it just yet, but both of them, cool grinders. We'd like to know your thoughts. What do you prefer, conical or flat? Let me know in the comments below. And like always, if this video has brought you value, hit that thumbs up, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. Thank you, and see you on the next video.